Commander Lee Jin-ho's hands tightened behind his back as he watched the crystalline ships pierce through Earth's clouds. The vessels shimmered like diamonds in the morning sun, their alien geometry defying human engineering principles. Around him, the assembled military leaders of Earth held their breath, knowing this moment would change human history forever. The ships touched down with impossible grace on the landing pad of the United Earth Defense Headquarters in Neo-Seoul. Their surfaces rippled like liquid glass, adapting to Earth's atmosphere. Jin-ho had trained for this moment for 3 years, but nothing could have prepared him for the sight of the first alien delegation stepping onto human soil. The beams that emerged looked almost human at first glance, but their movements were too fluid, their skin too perfect. They wore robes that seemed to flow like water, embedded with lights that pulsed in rhythm with their steps. Their leader, Counselor Neri, stood nearly 7 feet tall with silvery skin that reflected the sunlight. "Welcome to Earth," Jin-ho said, stepping forward as humanity's chosen representative. His voice was steady, masking the rapid beating of his heart. Neri's eyes swept over him, and Jin-ho felt like a specimen under a microscope. Her gaze lingered on his muscles, his joints, his skin. "Fascinating," she said, her universal translator converting her melodic language into crisp English. "You are even more primitive than our scans suggested." Jin-ho's jaw tightened, but he maintained his diplomatic smile. Behind him, he heard General Park intake a sharp breath. "We have reviewed your species' biological data," Neri continued, walking around Jin-ho in a slow circle. "Your respiratory system is inefficient. Your skeletal structure is prone to failure. Your reproductive process is dangerous and wasteful. Even your brain structure is basic." The other council members nodded in agreement, their perfect features showing various degrees of disgust or pity. One pulled out a scanning device, its holographic display showing a detailed analysis of human anatomy. "The council has reached a decision," Neri announced. "Humanity is classified as a Class 3 developing species. You will be granted limited access to council space and basic trading rights. However, you will not be permitted to colonize new worlds or participate in council decisions until you have evolved beyond your current limitations." Jin-ho's training warred with his pride. "With respect, Counselor, humanity has achieved remarkable progress in a short time. We've overcome countless challenges." "Yes," Neri interrupted, "through crude technology and brute force methods. Your species relies on external tools to compensate for your biological shortcomings. It's quite primitive." The council members spread out, examining the human delegation with clinical interest. One approached Dr. Kim, who stood near Jin-ho, and scanned her without permission. "Look at their cellular structure," the alien said. "Their DNA is barely organized. It's amazing they've survived this long." Jin-ho watched as humanity's greatest achievements were dismissed as the fumbling attempts of an inferior species. The space stations, the lunar colonies, the Mars terraforming project, all considered primitive toys by these advanced beings. But he noticed something in their perfect movements, their flawless features. They were stagnant, unchanged. Their evolution had stopped, leaving them frozen in their perceived perfection. Neri turned to address the human delegation. "We will establish an embassy here. You will be provided with basic council technology to help your species develop. In time, perhaps you will overcome your biological inefficiencies." As the council members returned to their ships, Jin-ho caught Dr. Kim's eye. She gave him a subtle nod, and he knew she was thinking the same thing. The council's dismissal of human potential would be their greatest mistake. Later that night, in a secure underground facility, Jin-ho met with Earth's Security Council. "They think we're weak," he said, "because they can't understand what makes us strong. Our inefficient biology allows us to adapt, to change, to evolve." Dr. Kim stepped forward, activating a holographic display of her own. "Their perfect bodies are evolutionary dead ends," she said. "But we can become something more." The seeds of Project Genesis were planted that day, born from the ashes of human pride. The Council would learn that humanity's greatest strength lay in the very imperfections they despised. As Jin-Ho looked at the classified files before him, he smiled. Let them think humans were primitive. Let them dismiss Earth as a backwater world of biological invalids. They would learn the truth soon enough. The future of humanity would be forged not in the crystal ships of the Council, but in the adaptable, imperfect, ever-changing nature of human DNA. And when the Council finally realized their mistake, it would be far too late. Dr. Kim Ta-won's fingers danced across the holographic display, reviewing the latest data from Project Genesis. The underground laboratory, hidden beneath the mountains of Neo-Sol, hummed with energy as advanced gene sequencers worked tirelessly. 3 months had passed since the Galactic Council's dismissive first contact, and humanity had been busy. Private Park Sun-Woo floated in the enhancement chamber, his body suspended in a golden liquid that sparkled under the lab lights. Monitoring devices showed his vital signs, all stronger than any human baseline. But what excited Dr. Kim most was his cellular adaptation rate. Look at these readings, she said to her assistant, Dr. Lee. His DNA isn't just accepting the modifications, it's improving them. The display showed Sun-Woo's enhanced muscle fibers, now 50 times stronger than normal human tissue, but requiring less energy to maintain. The soldier's eyes opened, glowing slightly in the golden liquid. Unlike the failed experiments that had come before him, Sun-Woo remained fully conscious and aware during the enhancement process. His mind had adapted along with his body, becoming sharper rather than degrading. Previous subjects showed 15% acceptance rate, Dr. Lee noted, reviewing older files. Private Park is showing 89% integration. What's different about him? Dr. Kim smiled, pulling up a complex genetic map. It's not him, it's us. The Council was wrong about human DNA being barely organized. Our genetic structure is incredibly complex, built for adaptation. We're not stuck in one form like they are. Private Park's hand moved in the liquid, making a thumbs-up gesture. The movement was impossibly fast, even through the dense enhancement fluid. Dr. Kim checked his neural readings, perfect synchronization between enhanced muscles and improved neural pathways. The Council species stopped evolving because they engineered themselves into perfect forms, Dr. Kim explained. But perfection is stagnation. Humanity's flaws let us change, adapt, become something new. Warning lights flashed as Park's heart rate suddenly spiked. But instead of showing distress, his readings indicated increased efficiency. His heart had spontaneously developed new muscle structures, improving blood flow to his enhanced body. That's impossible, Dr. Lee whispered. He's adapting in real time. Dr. Kim accessed the secure communications channel to Earth Defense Command. General Park, you need to see this. Project Genesis isn't just working, it's exceeding all projections. The enhanced soldier's body was changing before their eyes. Muscle density increased while maintaining flexibility. Bone structure reinforced itself without becoming brittle. Even his skin developed new properties, becoming stronger while retaining sensitivity. How soon can we begin mass production? The general's voice crackled through the secure line. Dr. Kim studied the data scrolling across her screen. The basic enhancements are ready now. But there's something more happening here. Private Park isn't just accepting our modifications, he's improving them. His DNA is learning. In the chamber, Park opened his eyes again. The slight glow had intensified, and thermal scans showed his body operating at peak efficiency despite the massive changes. He remained calm, his enhanced mind processing the transformation without fear. Their greatest weakness, Dr. Kim noted in her official log, is assuming we can't evolve. She looked at the soldier floating in the golden liquid. They think their perfect forms are the end of evolution. They forgot that perfection isn't a destination, it's a journey. Private Park's vital signs stabilized at their new enhanced levels. His body had accepted every modification and improved upon them. What should have taken years of careful genetic adjustment had happened in weeks. Begin production of the enhancement chambers, Dr. Kim ordered. Select the next group of volunteers, but keep Private Park in observation. I want to see how far human adaptation can go. As she watched the soldiers' enhanced form floating in the golden liquid, Dr. Kim thought about the Council's dismissive assessment of humanity. They had called humans primitive, flawed, inefficient. They had no idea that these very flaws would become humanity's greatest strength. The Genesis Project wasn't just creating enhanced soldiers, it was awakening humanity's dormant potential for evolution. And when the Council finally discovered what humans could become, their perfect, unchanging forms would seem primitive by comparison. Dr. Kim made one final note in her log. Project Genesis proceeding ahead of schedule. Human adaptability exceeds all projections. The next phase of human evolution has begun. Warning sirens wailed across Nueva Terra colony as the pirate ships dropped out of hyperspace. Captain Yoon Han watched from the command center as 12 heavily armed vessels descended through the atmosphere, their weapons already charging. Genesis Squad, deploy, she ordered, her enhanced soldiers moving with impossible speed from their barracks. Through her neural link, she felt their excitement. Not fear, but eagerness to finally test their abilities in real combat. At the Council observation post on the colony's moon, Ambassador Song leaned forward, curious to see how the primitive humans would handle this crisis. The pirates were notorious, equipped with advanced Council technology. The human colony stood no chance. Lieutenant Choi Jae-sung led the first wave of enhanced soldiers. His new body moved with fluid grace as he sprinted across the landing field at over 100 miles per hour. The pirates hadn't even finished landing when he reached their first ship. Impossible, Ambassador Song whispered, checking her instruments. The human soldiers' speed readings broke all known biological limits. Jae-sung's enhanced muscles coiled and released as he jumped, soaring 30 feet straight up. His reinforced hands plunged into the ship's hull, tearing through metal that could withstand plasma cannon fire. With one smooth motion, he ripped open the ship's engine housing. 2 more pirate vessels turned their weapons on him. Jae-sung moved faster than their targeting systems could track. He leaped between the ships, his enhanced strength letting him tear through their hulls like paper. Within seconds, 3 of the most advanced pirate ships in the sector lay crippled on the landing field. Captain Yoon watched with satisfaction as her other soldiers engaged. Private Kim dodged energy beams with precognitive speed, her enhanced nervous system processing information faster than any computer. Sergeant Lee lifted a crashed ship and used it as a shield, his bones and muscles easily handling the massive weight. In the observation post, the Council members stared in horror and fascination. These can't be the same humans we classified as primitives, Ambassador Song said. Their biology, it's impossible. The battle lasted less than 10 minutes. 9 pirate ships destroyed, 3 captured intact, and 0 civilian casualties. Captain Yoon's enhanced soldiers gathered on the landing field, their bodies showing no signs of fatigue. Their enhanced healing had already repaired what few injuries they'd sustained. Lieutenant Choi approached the captured pirate captain, who stared at him with terror in all 4 of his eyes. How? The pirate demanded. No species can move like that. No natural being can tear through reinforced hulls. Jae-sung smiled, his enhanced features making the expression more predatory than intended. We're still natural, he said. We've just evolved. In her command center, Captain Yoon received an urgent message from Earth Command. The Council observation post had transmitted their battle footage to the Galactic Assembly. Their secret was out. She looked at her soldiers through the window. Faster, stronger, and smarter than any human had ever been, but still undeniably human. The Council had dismissed humanity's potential, never imagining that the flaws in human DNA would allow such dramatic evolution. Captain, Lieutenant Choi called through the comlink. The Council observers are requesting permission to take biological samples. Denied, she replied. They'll learn soon enough what humanity is capable of. As cleanup crews moved in to clear the battlefield, Captain Yoon composed her report. The Genesis project had exceeded all expectations. Human soldiers could now match and exceed the capabilities of any known species, and this was just the beginning. In the observation post, Ambassador Song sent her own urgent message to the Council. The humans they had dismissed as primitives had achieved the impossible, controlled stable genetic enhancement. Her hand shook as she attached the battle footage. The Council would soon learn that humanity's greatest strength lay in their capacity to change, to adapt, to evolve. The age of human primitives was over. A new chapter in galactic history had begun, written by the very species they had underestimated. Captain Yoon watched her enhanced soldiers secure the area, each movement a demonstration of power that should not have been possible. Their primitive DNA had given them the ability to become something new, something that would shake the foundations of galactic society. The real test would come when the Council realized what humanity had achieved. But for now, Captain Yoon allowed herself a small smile. The pirates had learned a valuable lesson about underestimating humans. Soon, the entire galaxy would learn the same. Council Representative Song Minna's hands trembled as she replayed the battle footage for the 12th time. The council chamber fell silent, all eyes fixed on the massive holographic display showing enhanced human soldiers performing impossible feats on Nueva Terra. "This must be fabricated," she declared, but her voice lacked conviction. The footage showed Lieutenant Choi tearing through reinforced starship hulls with his bare hands. Other soldiers moved faster than tracking systems, lifted massive weights, and demonstrated reflexes that defied biology. Security Officer Kang Do-hyun stood at attention near the chamber entrance, watching the council members' reactions. As Earth's liaison to galactic security, he knew this moment would change everything. The Genesis Project's exposure was inevitable, but the timing was crucial. "We have confirmation from multiple sources," another council member said. "Our observation post recorded the entire battle. These humans have achieved stable genetic enhancement." The chamber erupted in chaos. Species that had looked down on humanity for generations now faced the reality that these primitives had accomplished what they had failed to do for centuries. "How many enhanced soldiers do they have?" demanded a reptilian counselor. "What are their capabilities? Their limitations?" Do-hyun maintained his neutral expression, but inwardly he smiled. The same beings who had dismissed humans as barely evolved now feared them. The irony wasn't lost on him. Minna accessed more data from the Nueva Terra incident. Their enhanced soldiers show no signs of genetic degradation. Their modifications are stable and improving. "They're still evolving." "Impossible," shouted a counselor from a species that had tried and failed at enhancement for millennia. "Genetic modification always leads to breakdown. Always." Do-hyun stepped forward. "Perhaps," he said carefully, "you succeeded too well in your own evolution. Perfect forms cannot improve. But humanity's flawed DNA allows for adaptation." The council chambers grew quiet as the implications sank in. Humanity's greatest weakness, their imperfect, adaptable biology, had become their greatest strength. Emergency alerts began flooding in from across council space. Other colonies reported similar incidents where enhanced human soldiers displayed extraordinary abilities. The secret was spreading faster than anyone had anticipated. Minna pulled up more data streams. "We're receiving reports of human enhancement programs on every Earth colony. They've been doing this right under our noses while we dismissed them as primitives." Do-hyun watched as the proud council members realized their mistake. They had achieved biological perfection centuries ago, but that perfection had become their prison. Humans, with their primitive DNA, had found a way to transcend their limitations. "We must contain this," a counselor suggested. "The balance of power is already changed." Do-hyun interrupted. "Humanity will not be contained. We have evolved beyond your expectations." Minna reviewed the combat footage again, focusing on the enhanced soldiers' vital signs. Their improvements aren't just physical. Neural capacity, reaction time, healing. They've enhanced everything. And they're still improving. The council debated frantically, but Do-hyun knew it was too late. The footage would spread across the galaxy. Everyone would know that humanity had achieved what the advanced species could not. You called us primitive, Do-hyun said quietly, but every council member turned to listen. You saw our adaptability as a weakness. Now you understand. Change is strength. Evolution didn't end with perfection. It ended with stagnation. As the emergency session continued, Minna approached Do-hyun privately. Your people have changed everything, she said. The galaxy will never be the same. Do-hyun nodded. That was always the plan. You gave us the motivation when you dismissed us as primitives. We just needed time to show you what humanity could become. The council would spend days debating this crisis, but the truth was already spreading across the stars. Humanity had evolved beyond anyone's expectations, and they were still changing, still improving. The age of perfect, unchanging forms was over. A new era had begun, one where humanity's greatest flaw had become their greatest triumph. Dr. Lee Soo-jin stood before the emergency council session, her holographic presentation showing the complex dance of human DNA adaptation. The council chamber, normally a model of decorum, buzzed with tension as representatives from 100 species waited to understand how their primitive humans had achieved the impossible. What you see here, Dr. Lee began, pointing to a spinning DNA model, is human genetic structure in its natural state. Note the seemingly chaotic patterns, the imperfections you all criticized. These aren't flaws, they're opportunities. The display shifted, showing failed enhancement experiments from various council species, horrific mutations, cellular breakdown, neural degradation. Centuries of attempts to improve upon their perfect forms had led only to disaster. Your species achieved biological perfection, Dr. Lee continued. Your DNA is stable, unchanging, precise, but that's exactly why you can't enhance it. You can't improve perfection. A counselor from the Pristine Collective stood up, their crystalline form catching the light. Are you suggesting our evolutionary superiority is actually a weakness? Dr. Lee smiled. Exactly. Your DNA is like a finished painting. Beautiful, but static. Human DNA is more like a living canvas, constantly ready for new strokes. The display changed to show footage of Project Genesis subjects. The council members watched in fascination as human cells accepted modifications, adapted them, improved them. Human DNA doesn't just accept changes, Dr. Lee explained. It learns from them. Each modification becomes a template for further improvement. We're not just changing. We're evolving in real time. The chamber erupted in shouts and demands. Species that had looked down on humans now faced the reality that their own perfection had become their limitation. Dr. Lee pulled up medical data from enhanced soldiers. Look at these neural patterns. Our primitive brains don't just get faster. They develop new structures. Our inefficient muscles don't just get stronger. They invent new ways to use energy. This is impossible, declared a representative of the eternal confluence. We've studied genetic enhancement for millennia. There must be side effects, deterioration. None, Dr. Lee interrupted, because we're not fighting our nature. Adaptation is our nature. Change is our strength. She showed them cellular scans from Lieutenant Choi, the soldier who had torn apart starship hulls. His enhanced muscles should have torn his bones apart. Instead, his skeleton spontaneously reinforced itself. His enhanced speed should have overwhelmed his nervous system. Instead, his neural pathways evolved new processing methods. The council chambers fell silent as the implications became clear. Humanity's flawed biology had given them something no other species possessed: the ability to direct their own evolution. We're not trying to achieve perfection, Dr. Lee said into the silence. We're embracing imperfection. Each change, each adaptation, each enhancement opens new possibilities. While you remained static in your perfection, we kept the ability to become something more. A younger council member spoke up. Can this process be replicated in other species? No, Dr. Lee replied. Your perfect forms reject change. You engineered out the very thing that makes enhancement possible. The ability to adapt, to be imperfect, to evolve. The display showed a final image, a projection of human potential. Enhanced soldiers were just the beginning. Humanity's adaptable DNA opened possibilities that the Council's perfect species had never imagined. You called us primitive, Dr. Lee concluded. You saw our adaptability as a flaw. But evolution didn't end with perfection. It ended with stagnation. Humanity is still evolving, still changing, still becoming something new. As the council chambers descended into chaos, Dr. Lee packed up her presentation. Her work here was done. The galaxy would never see humanity the same way again. Their greatest weakness had become their greatest strength, and their evolution was just beginning. Ambassador Park Ji-won stood at the council podium, her face a mask of diplomatic calm despite the storm raging around her. The chamber, usually a model of civilized debate, had devolved into barely controlled chaos as species after species demanded action against Earth's enhancement program. This is a violation of natural law, thundered the pristine collective's representative. These modifications must be stopped immediately. 3 major council species formally demand the cessation of all human enhancement activities. A new era had begun, one where humanity's greatest flaw had become their greatest triumph. Dr. Lee Soo-jin stood before the emergency council session, her holographic presentation showing the complex dance of human DNA adaptation. The council chamber, normally a model of decorum, buzzed with tension as representatives from 100 species waited to understand how their primitive humans had achieved the impossible. What you see here, Dr. Lee began, pointing to a spinning DNA model, is human genetic structure in its natural state. Note the seemingly chaotic patterns, the imperfections you all criticized. These aren't flaws, they're opportunities. The display shifted, showing failed enhancement experiments from various council species, horrific mutations, cellular breakdown, neural degradation. Centuries of attempts to improve upon their perfect forms had led only to disaster. Your species achieved biological perfection, Dr. Lee continued. Your DNA is stable, unchanging, precise, but that's exactly why you can't enhance it. You can't improve perfection. A counselor from the pristine collective stood up, their crystalline form catching the light. Are you suggesting our evolutionary superiority is actually a weakness? Dr. Lee smiled. Exactly. Your DNA is like a finished painting. Beautiful, but static. Human DNA is more like a living canvas, constantly ready for new strokes. The display changed to show footage of Project Genesis subjects. The council members watched in fascination as human cells accepted modifications, adapted them, improved them. Human DNA doesn't just accept changes, Dr. Lee explained. It learns from them. Each modification becomes a template for further improvement. We're not just changing. We're evolving in real time. The chamber erupted in shouts and demands. Species that had looked down on humans now faced the reality that their own perfection had become their limitation. Dr. Lee pulled up medical data from enhanced soldiers. Look at these neural patterns. Our primitive brains don't just get faster. They develop new structures. Our inefficient muscles don't just get stronger. They invent new ways to use energy. This is impossible, declared a representative of the eternal confluence. We've studied genetic enhancement for millennia. There must be side effects, deterioration. None, Dr. Lee interrupted, because we're not fighting our nature. Adaptation is our nature. Change is our strength. She showed them cellular scans from Lieutenant Choi, the soldier who had torn apart starship hulls. His enhanced muscles should have torn his bones apart. Instead, his skeleton spontaneously reinforced itself. His enhanced speed should have overwhelmed his nervous system. Instead, his neural pathways evolved new processing methods. The council chambers fell silent as the implications became clear. Humanity's flawed biology had given them something no other species possessed: the ability to direct their own evolution. "We're not trying to achieve perfection," Dr. Lee said into the silence. "We're embracing imperfection. Each change, each adaptation, each enhancement opens new possibilities. While you remained static in your perfection, we kept the ability to become something more." A younger council member spoke up. "Can this process be replicated in other species?" "No," Dr. Lee replied. "Your perfect forms reject change. You engineered out the very thing that makes enhancement possible: the ability to adapt, to be imperfect, to evolve." The display showed a final image, a projection of human potential. Enhanced soldiers were just the beginning. Humanity's adaptable DNA opened possibilities that the Council's perfect species had never imagined. "You called us primitive," Dr. Lee concluded. "You saw our adaptability as a flaw. But evolution didn't end with perfection. It ended with stagnation. Humanity is still evolving, still changing, still becoming something new." As the council chambers descended into chaos, Dr. Lee packed up her presentation. Her work here was done. The galaxy would never see humanity the same way again. Their greatest weakness had become their greatest strength, and their evolution was just beginning. Ambassador Park Ji-won stood at the council podium, her face a mask of diplomatic calm despite the storm raging around her. The chamber, usually a model of civilized debate, had devolved into barely controlled chaos as species after species demanded action against Earth's enhancement program. "This is a violation of natural law," thundered the pristine collective's representative. "These modifications must be stopped immediately." 3 major council species formally demand the cessation of all human enhancement activities. Behind her calm exterior, Ji-won felt a flutter of satisfaction. The same species that had dismissed humans as primitives now feared them enough to make demands. Her comm unit buzzed. Another urgent message from Intelligence Director Han Yumai about attempted infiltrations of research facilities. "The Council's concerns are noted," Ji-won said, her voice cutting through the chaos. "However, Earth's position remains unchanged. The enhancement program is a matter of human internal development. We will not share or cease this technology." The chamber erupted again. Species that had looked down on humanity for generations now faced the reality that their primitive neighbors had achieved something they couldn't replicate. Director Han's voice came through Ji-won's secure earpiece. "Ambassador, we intercepted 3 more infiltration attempts at the Genesis facilities. The Eternal Confluence tried to hack our databases. The Pristine Collective attempted to bribe our scientists." Ji-won allowed herself a small smile. How interesting that species who called us primitive now seemed desperate to acquire our technology. "This is not a request," the Pristine Collective representative said. "The Council demands access to monitor these facilities. Your enhancement program poses a threat to galactic stability." "Does it?" Ji-won asked. "Or does it threaten your assumption of superiority? You dismissed us as primitive when you thought we couldn't change. Now you fear us because we can." Her comm unit displayed another alert from Director Han. 2 more species had attempted to send covert operatives to Earth. All had been caught by enhanced security forces. "The Council cannot allow one species to possess such advantages," declared another representative. "Either share the technology or cease its use." Ji-won's voice turned cold. "You misunderstand. This isn't a negotiation. Humanity will not be controlled or contained. We're not asking for permission to evolve." The chamber fell silent as she continued. "For generations, you looked down on us, called us primitive, mocked our adaptability as a flaw. Now you understand. What you saw as weakness was actually strength." Director Han sent another update. The attempted infiltrations were getting more sophisticated. Enhanced security teams had captured infiltrators using advanced cloaking technology. "Earth's position is final," Ji-won declared. "The enhancement program continues. The technology remains exclusively human. Any attempt to steal or replicate our research will be met with force. You dare threaten the Council? A representative demanded. No threat, Jai-1 replied. Simply fact. You can't replicate our enhancement process. Your perfect forms reject change. That's why you're here making demands instead of developing your own programs. The political crisis reached its peak as more species joined the demands for action. But Earth stood firm. Humanity had found its advantage. The very adaptability that the Council had mocked had become their greatest asset. Director Han's final message of the day made Jai-1 smile. Every infiltration attempt had failed. The enhanced humans protecting Earth's secrets were proving impossible to overcome. The Council's session is noted, Jai-1 concluded, but humanity will continue to evolve. You can either accept this new reality or continue to deny it. Either way, we will not be stopped. As she left the chamber, Jai-1 reflected on how quickly the galaxy's power structure had shifted. The perfect, unchanging species that had once ruled now faced a humanity that was constantly evolving, constantly improving. The political crisis would continue, but the outcome was already decided. Humanity's greatest weakness had become their greatest strength, and the galaxy would never be the same. Commander Lee Jin-ho stood at the viewport of his enhanced command ship, watching the stars of the Centaurus sector drift by. His improved vision could now pick out individual planets against the darkness of space. 1 year had transformed him from Earth's first contact representative to the commander of humanity's most powerful peacekeeping fleet. Commander, we have another distress call, his AI reported. The pristine collective settlement on Delta 9 is under attack from raiders. Jin-ho allowed himself a small smile. The same pristine collective that had once called humans primitive now regularly requested their protection. Their perfect, unchanging forms couldn't match the raiders' advanced technology, but humanity's enhanced soldiers could. Deploy Genesis Squad Alpha, he ordered. His enhanced mind simultaneously processed tactical data from 12 different sources while coordinating the response. Remind them to minimize collateral damage this time. Dr. Kim Ta-won's latest report flashed across his neural interface. The enhancement program had exceeded all projections. 4th-generation enhanced humans were developing abilities that even she hadn't thought possible. Evolution hadn't stopped. It had accelerated. The Genesis Squad dropped from orbit, their enhanced bodies easily withstanding forces that would crush unmodified humans. Jin-ho watched through their shared neural network as they engaged the raiders. The battle was over in minutes. Pristine collective representatives request permission to board, the AI announced. They wish to express their gratitude personally. Jin-ho remembered their first meeting, how they had looked down at him with disdain. Now they approached with carefully hidden fear and respect. Humanity's flaws had made them the most powerful species in known space. The latest data from Earth is interesting, his science officer reported. Dr. Kim's team has discovered new adaptation patterns. The enhancement process is becoming more efficient with each generation. That was the true irony. While other species remained locked in their perfect, unchanging forms, humanity continued to evolve. Each enhancement, each adaptation, opened new possibilities. Commander, his tactical officer called. The Council has requested enhanced human peacekeepers for 3 more sectors. They're offering significant technological trades. Jin-ho declined the offers. Earth didn't need their technology anymore. Human adaptability had proven more valuable than any advanced alien systems. Dr. Kim's final report scrolled through his mind. Project Genesis has succeeded beyond our wildest expectations. What the Council saw as flaws, our adaptability, our imperfection, our constant drive to change, have become our greatest strengths. Humanity isn't just surviving. We're evolving into something new. The stars streaked by as his ship moved to its next mission. Jin-ho reflected on how much had changed in 1 year. The Council species had achieved their idea of perfection centuries ago, but that perfection had become their limitation. Humanity's imperfection had given them the freedom to become something more. Set course for the next crisis point, he ordered. His enhanced crew responded instantly, their improved bodies and minds working in perfect harmony. They weren't just soldiers anymore. They were the next step in human evolution. As his ship entered faster than light travel, Jin-Ho smiled at the final irony. The species that had once sneered at human weakness now depended on that same primitive species for protection. Humanity's greatest flaw had become their greatest triumph, and their evolution was far from over. The galaxy had learned an important lesson. Perfection wasn't the end of evolution. It was a dead end. True strength lay in the ability to change, to adapt, to become something new. And humanity was just beginning to discover what they could become.